Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before we rank each episode against each other. Today's episode is Grey's Anatomy Season 2, Episode 12, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. The episode in a nutshell is just a brief reminder of exactly what happened within this episode. So this episode had three main patients that it was focused on. The first patient was a woman who had an ulcer, and it was a bleeding ulcer in her stomach that needed operation. However, her surgeries kept getting pushed back because she was non-emergent and emergent cases kept coming in, and her family wasn't happy about this and causing a fuss. And based on the behaviors of the doctors, I feel that they probably suspected that the ulcers, given that she'd had 3 within the last 5 years, were likely caused to stress. And the room that she was in, even secondhand, was very stressful. Unfortunately, it turns out that she had 2 ulcers, one of which was bleeding, the other one perforates. She starts coughing up blood, and this leads to her finally getting her surgery. And then once the surgery is done, George gets permission from Bailey to tell off the family and essentially tell them to get out so that the wife can recover. The second patient was a father who was hanging up lights and fell off the ladder, fell off the roof, and ended up with a brain bleed. So Derek and Izzy go ahead and operate on the bleed that they found. However, when the patient wakes up, their personality has completely changed, which is confusing to them at first because they weren't in the part of the brain that affects personality. However, then they do another CT scan and find out that there was actually a second bleed in a different part of the brain, the frontal lobe, and they go in and do a second surgery. And luckily this time when he comes out of the surgery, though we don't see it as an audience, we are informed by the doctors that his personality seems to have recovered back to where it had been before. And then lastly, the last patient that we have is a boy named Justin who had, as a baby, needed a heart transplant. However, the heart that was transplanted did not keep up growing with his body, and therefore he had to go back on the donor list for a second heart, and he does get an additional heart. However, he keeps saying that he doesn't want the heart and that it should go to somebody else. And when they put the heart in, he does start to reject the heart. He does have some close calls. It is then realized through him counseling with his mother and their priest that his mother had tried to stay positive for him and had kept telling him that the heart was a gift from Santa that the elves had made. However, he heard the nurses basically saying what a transplant was, which is that a child died, their organs were donated, and then he got another child's heart, and he didn't want another child to die so he could live, and also pointed out that his mother had been praying for him every single day, and that essentially what she was praying for was for another child to die, and that's why he didn't want to get the heart because he felt guilty and he felt that he wasn't worthy of the heart, having found out this information. But then Christina is the one who says basically, don't believe in God, don't believe in Santa, believe in science. A surgeon made it so that even though you had a heart that you should have died with as a baby, you were able to get another one and manage to live. And you know what? If you choose to live, you can grow up to become a surgeon who maybe finds a way to do a heart transplant without anybody else having to die. And so he should live, and then we find out at the end of the episode that he has started to do better with the heart. Then we have our drama for the episode. So starting with the drama between Alex and everyone else, basically, Alex admits that he had failed part of his boards and that it may potentially be his last day in the hospital as he is retaking the boards the next day. And so Meredith informs Bailey, who lets her help him study, but then she gets called to the OR, so Christina takes her place to help him study. Then George comes down, finds out, helps him study, and then lastly, Izzy finds out, and at first she's angry at everybody else for helping him study, but then Meredith points out that it's Christmas, that Izzy has been going all out for Christmas, and that they, despite not being holiday people, have been being supportive of her going all out for Christmas. And in the spirit of the season that Izzy is so in love with, perhaps she should put aside their differences and help Alex because this is something that is life altering and will affect his life. So she then eventually does decide to help him. And then she ends up breaking down in tears because the pain of his betrayal comes out and he basically, gets the chance to apologize to her. We then get the drama between Addison and Derek. And Addison and Derek used to be very big Christmas people, and Addison is trying to set up time to shop, to buy gifts for everyone, and she can't understand why Derek suddenly isn't interested. She asks if he's depressed, if something's going on that she's not aware of, and he keeps kind of blowing her off. And then at the very end of the episode, he reveals that Meredith wasn't a fling, she wasn't revenge, that he is actually in love with her, and that deciding to stay with Addison doesn't change the fact that he loves Meredith, and that Christmas season is a time when you feel like you want to spend time with people you love, which in this case is not her at this moment, though he did say that he's still deciding to stay with her, but pointing out that that's the reason, which is a pretty big development. Then we have the Christina Burke relationship drama, which is when Christina finds out that Burke is spiritual. Not necessarily religious, but he does believe in a power larger than himself and in the body, mind, spirit connection. And obviously, he had been gotten out a tree to celebrate Christmas. Christina reveals that she's Jewish because her stepfather was Jewish. Then he's like, okay, well, are there any traditions you want? And she's like, I don't even follow religious holidays at all. She believes in science, and she kind of gets upset because that's something that she thought they both believed in science, but now she finds out that he likes something bigger. But by the end of the episode, with the Justin situation, it seems like that is resolved, and she's accepted that, potentially he's allowed to believe that, and she doesn't necessarily have to, though she does still believe in medicine. And that was the Christmas-themed episode. So after that reminder about what happened within this episode, it's now time to rank the episode. As always, we will rank on our two ranking lists, the mostly objective ranking list, which uses set values to determine the score, and then the personal ranking list, which uses my opinion to determine the score. Alright, so we start on our mostly objective rank values, and I highlighted those I felt applied to this episode. And we start with our single episode supporting character introductions, which are our three highlighted patients for the episode. We have Justin Davidson, Tim Epstein, and Nadia Shelton. Justin Davidson is the heart transplant patient. Tim Epstein is the father who fell off the roof. And Nadia Shelton is the woman with the two ulcers. We then have a successful emotional impact, which I felt was Justin's storyline. Like I said, not like I said, but I felt like Justin specifically as the character was emotionally endearing. The family, not so much, but Justin's story, Justin's feelings, the reasons why he's iffy about getting the heart, are all very emotionally impactful, and that is why it is worth the 3 points. And then finally, our final positive for this episode was our multi-season main character growth, which was that Alex was retaking the boards, and all of the interns, despite the tension, even Izzy, who's still upset about being cheated on, come together in order to help him study, which I think is a very nice moment and does show the strength of their bonds of their little group that they have formed as the interns who are part of the same, like assigned to the same resident. And that was worth 4 points. Now we get into the negatives. So we have the supporting relationship regression or breakup, which is Derek and Addison Derek being kind of blowing off Addison and not interested in the holiday. And then finally at the end of the episode, he tells her why. And the reason why is that he admits he fell in love with Meredith, and while he had chosen her and to stay with her, that doesn't make the love he feels go away. And because it is the holiday, there is a drive or a desire to spend time with the people you love. And in his case, that would be not her, but Meredith, which is a pretty big regression. But it's not a breakup because he still chose to stay with her and does stand by that decision, even as he tells her this. We then have a main relationship regression or breakup between Burke and Christina. And this is ongoing throughout the episode where Christina is highly offended by the fact that Burke is spiritual because she felt like the one thing that they weren't opposites on was their belief in science. And now she finds out that not only does he believe in science, but he also believes in something larger than himself. At the end of the episode, it's implied she's starting to come around, but as she doesn't expressly say it, and even when she's talking to Justin, she's not necessarily talking about a higher power, but rather believe in science if you don't want to believe in Santa. I don't know if it's been resolved, which is why there's no positive counter to it, but throughout the episode, they definitely were fighting, and that is why I consider it to be a regression in their relationship. And that was worth -3 points. And finally, we have weaker dislikable supporting character. In this case, in this episode, it was characters plural because they purposely wrote in the most annoying families that have ever existed. Like, I have a pretty large extended family. I have never in my life dealt with people that behaved in these manners. Honestly, secondhand stress, secondhand annoyance, I could not live with these people. I could not. I felt so much pity for every single one of the patients. The only one I didn't necessarily feel pity for was Tim, who fell off the roof, because he seemed to genuinely enjoy the chaos around him, like the children. But also, those children, the two daughters were pretty well behaved, but the son was so rude. Like, so rude. And honestly, I'm like, why would they write such dislikable families for every single patient? Like, why not have maybe one with the annoying family, annoying loud family, one with a caring parent, and then one with, just like a happy, respectful family. Like, I don't understand what the deal was with just like rude families, loud families, chaotic families, just general families that make you want to pull your hair out because not all families are like that. And it would have been nice to see a variety of types of families, you know, and they had like the loud, crazy, chaotic doesn't really care about the person who's actually ill, but more so about themselves family. Then they had the overbearing parent who didn't want to know or listen to their child and was more concerned with protecting their innocence than actually figuring out what they needed. And then there was, like I said, the one with the lots of children, though that was the best family because they did seem to be very happy and that seemed to be what they wanted. But at the same time, the kid was so rude and the mother did nothing to admonish the kid. And it's like, teach your children how to exist in society, please, because you should not be speaking that way to anyone, let alone a doctor who is potentially going to save your parents' life. Like, beyond me. I could not with the families. And so and I always say with the mostly objective rank values that it is without emotion, but bias and judgment still apply. And I judge based on my family bias that these people were very dislikable. And that is why they were with -4 points. And this episode ended up a 1 out of 10. And so with a score of 1 out of 10, that brings our season 2 ranking so far. On our mostly objective ranking, to in first place, Make Me Lose Control, Into You Like a Train, Deny, 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 Thanks for the Memories, Enough is Enough, Something to Talk About, Let It Be, Much Too Much, Bring the Pain, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, Owner of a Lonely Heart, and then this episode did end up in last place. Grandma got run over by a reindeer. So for my personal opinion on the episode, I thought it was a bit secondhand annoying. You know, like when you're dealing with your own family, who maybe is a little bit annoying, you have a lot of grace and patience for them because they're your family. But on screen, watching these families, I was so stressed out. I was like, this is just very, very annoying, secondhand annoyance. And that obviously didn't put me in a great mood while watching. So I do think it did have like a bit of a negative impact on my personal opinion of the episode. Additional to that, we had some very good things like milestones come out. For example, we had Alex, like we're bringing back up Alex's board exams, which we'd found out that he had to retake them ages ago, and it has shown him studying on and off, but this is where we find out that they're the next day, and everybody comes together to help him study. There's, of course, the big revelation from Derek to Addison that he's still in love with Meredith, that it's not going to go away just because he chose her. And that was a really awesomely big revelation. There was a funny moment, of course, with Bailey. As we know, she is currently pregnant in the series. And we do see kind of as she's doing the operations, how she's tired on her feet. She's needing milkshakes, she's getting nauseous. So we're seeing some of those pregnancy symptoms come up. But what I found amusing in this episode was during one of the surgeries, she basically pauses the surgery to talk to her baby and basically give him orders. Do not kick me while I am working. And then she like pushes on a spot on her stomach and then says thank you and continues to work. But I think that that was really adorable that she was talking to her baby, and also very Bailey that she was giving him orders on like to behave while she is working while he's still in utero. That was a great moment. And then at the end of the episode, there is a nice moment between Izzy Meredith and George and their new dog where they lay down underneath the Christmas tree and look up at all the beautiful lights from underneath the tree. So those were the good things. Other than that, like I said, I got secondhand annoyance and stress from the family situations. Way too many people doing way too many things. It was overwhelming. And then, of course, they had a bunch of surgeries, but there was no real, like, I think the point was that at the holidays, there's a lot of turnaround, there's a lot more injuries, so they just kind of were going with a bunch of people that they didn't even name the patients. Then you had the main patients. I did think the Justin storyline was very sweet and also makes a point that, like, no matter how much you may try to shield your children, maybe don't treat them like they're stupid once they figured you out. Um, because like that mom was very dedicated to the Santa thing and the elf thing and the like my baby doesn't grow and is will be permanently a child, a baby. Like even when he outright says that his mom has been praying for somebody else to die and that he's acknowledged and realized this, she's still like kind of in denial, honestly. So I didn't really like his mom. I did think he was a sweet kid. Then, and had it been explained to him properly, he probably wouldn't have had the same issue that he did have. But because she kept trying to fake it, say it was from Santa, say elves built it, she basically was not giving him what he needed ultimately. And then the other two, like I said, there was the one with the altar, and honestly, her family was overwhelming. She got very overshadowed, and it's no wonder she had ulcers because, oh my gosh, were those people horrific. I would have ulcers too. And then with the dad, he has kids. I don't want to parent shame, but oh my God, his little boy was rude. Like rudest kid I've ever heard of. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe the kid is being that rude to the doctors. And like the mother's doing nothing about it, not even reprimanding the kid. It's like, oh my goodness. But at the same time, I did think that that was a nice, sweet family. They seemed to be very happy together. And it was kind of upsetting when he ended up yelling at everybody when he woke up the first time. And even the mother, when she goes out, she basically tells Shepard, like, treat this like it is, catastrophic cancer because to us that's how it feels because that is not the person I married. He does not speak to me or my children that way, standardly. And of course, after the second operation, it is then told to us as the audience when the doctors are communicating to each other that the second operation seems to have fixed that issue. But all in all, I'm also not a big fan of holiday themed episodes because, well, when it was originally airing, it probably did air around Christmas time. On rewatches, you'll have holiday themes that don't necessarily take place at the holiday because you could rewatch it any time. But that's more of a personal thing, and I'm not going to count that towards my scoring. Just something that I noted as a preference. Not always a huge fan of holiday ones. Some do it really well or very ambiguously, and I feel like, honestly, as far as holiday theme episodes go, it was still focused more on the patients and the standard. So it wasn't that, like, it was more of an underlying theme. So honestly, I didn't necessarily mind it in this case, but also wasn't my favorite thing. All of that being said, I gave this episode a 4 out of 10. Because while it had some strong points, I didn't necessarily really enjoy watching it. Which brings me to the season 2 ranking so far in our personal ranking, which in first place, Make Me Lose Control, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, Something to Talk About, Into You Like a Train, Deny, 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 Let It Be, Thanks for the Memories, Much Too Much, Enough is Enough, Bring the Pain. This episode has come in at 11th place, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, and then Owner of a Lonely Heart is currently in 12th. We now come to our final segment, which is our series ranking so far. On our mostly objective ranking, Season 1 ended with 77.78%, and Season 2 so far has gotten 83 out of a possible 270 points. On the personal side of the ranking, we have Season 1 ending with 66.67%, and Season 2 has 83 points also out of a 270 so far. And with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Grey's Anatomy Season 2, Episode 12, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.